Good evening and welcome. Welcome to Family Time. My name is Roland Gale and I'm your host today. Please invite your loved ones, your friends to join us via Facebook and YouTube Live. Now, we know that Family Time is about your issues and your relationships, your at home family, your community family, and your global family. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to foster healthy families, which will lead to healthy nations. Please stay with us as we explore the issues that families face. We love having you here, and we're glad that you join us. Now, what's going on in the mind of the average teen male, teen young man? What's he thinking about, and why? Who is he thinking about? And of course, what does he think about himself? What does he think about girls, his future, his fears, his looks, his career? Simple things like cars, superheroes, or sports. What does he think about death or life? Why does he think that way? Do all teen boys think the same way? How can you tell what a teen boy is thinking? What influences his thoughts? Man, those are a lot of questions. And we have so many more questions. Our topic today is when boys think. And we're going to talk about that for the next hour. But we don't just want to talk about that. We want to hear from you. So I'm going to ask our male audience in particular, older gentlemen like myself, grandfathers, youngsters, teenagers, tell us, what did you think about when you were a teenager? And if you're a teenager today, just shoot us a note and let us know what you're thinking about right now. You can WhatsApp your text and voice notes to us. Make sure that they're no longer than 30 seconds. And the number is 997-3125. Or you can call the studio lines, and that is 968-8327 to 8. And of course, you know that these numbers, you put 876 before them. You can also watch us and comment live on Love 101 Facebook and also on YouTube. We're going to come right back with our special guest, Dr. Joan Pinkney. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Jamaica's gangs are like packs of rats.
Nasty.
They live in filth and try and drag us all in there with them, spreading the disease of violence and corruption everywhere.
Nasty.
But like a pack of rats, they can be eliminated with your help. If you have information on gangs, call Crime Stop on 311. This message is brought to you by Crime Stop and their marketing partners, Lime and NCB.
Importers, the Jamaica Customs Agency is reforming its clearance process, making it easier for you to clear your non-commercial and small value items using our simplified declarations. You will be able to clear your goods without physically visiting the port or a warehouse for customs inspection, making your clearance experience even better. The pilot begins October 2022 across all marine public bonded warehouses. For further details, email Jamaica Customs at contactlesclearance@jca.gov.jm or telephone 876-922-5140 to 8. We're here to serve you. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
You love Grace Foods, come dance with me. Whether you are wild or you are pitney, we make everybody happy evidently. Grace in every house, in every con. Grace with the new dip. GK fit. Lead by your mind like a jockey with a whip. Talk to we nice to make your mouth slap. Grace move in the world, everybody knows. 100 lit, 100 years in every basket. 100 years of great friendship. Grace move in the world, everybody knows.
Grace, celebrating 100 years of taste that moves you.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101. Today's discussion is titled When Boys Think, and our special guest is Dr. Joan Pinkney. And I know some of you wish you could be here in the studio or on the lines to be a part of the background discussion, but too bad. We're going to keep what is off air. And I am going to welcome Dr. Pinkney shortly, but I want to invite all our male listeners, all of you, whether you're a teenage boy now or you were a teenage boy 50 years ago, I want you to shoot us a note, a WhatsApp, a voice note, anything like that, and tell us, what did you think about, or what do you think about the most? You can WhatsApp your text and voice notes, and make sure they're no longer than 30 seconds, to 997-3125. And you can watch us and comment live on Love 101, Facebook and YouTube. Or you can call the studio lines at 968-8327 or 968-8328. And you can participate that way. Now, I see our lovely guest online and I want to invite her. Doc, how are you doing?
Good. I'm well, thank you. Are you hearing me good?
Yes, I'm hearing you well. And I know you're the same Doc who is a counseling psychologist and host of The Counselor right here on Love 101. So I think you're in a slightly different seat tonight.
Absolutely. But it's all good.
It is all good. And I'm so glad you're here with us.
Thank you.
Now, I was a teen boy at some point in life. And when you look at me, you can kind of say that it was a few years ago. And so what's that?
Last week evening.
My wife would say she has two boys, me and my son, but don't worry about that. Now, one of the things is that I know tonight we may say some things that I already know and some things that are new to me. But because we're all different, I want to start at the beginning. So, Doc, generally speaking, what do teenage boys think about?
Well, perhaps it'll be good to look at what influences their thinking, because we talk about frogs and snails and puppy dogs tails, but there is the there is a feeling of the budding muscles, the budding fragile ego, the budding testosterone influence, the growth, the height and weight differences, rapid changes sometimes even. The fact that their brain is being developed, and which of course controls their emotions. And there are a number of things that, like the limbic system is not quite developed, and so that will influence, for example, how they respond to threat, how they respond to danger, and that is enhanced by how they are taught to behave as a boy. So boys are not supposed to be free, as we say in Jamaican parlance. The feeling that they're immune to things that are negative, and so they become sensitive to the fact that they can do these great things and these wonderful things because of the underdevelopment of some sections of the brain, but also because of how they are socialized.
Doc, can I just butt in there a second, because you're now talking to Roland, the teenager.
Yes.
And back when I was a teenager, I now recognize what you're talking about. I felt as if I was invincible.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing could hurt, harm, trouble, bother, or otherwise upset me. And little minor things like perhaps a car accident or a broken limb for just things to shake off and move past. Is
Absolutely.
that what you're talking about?
That's absolutely what we're talking about. The mind is in the growing phase. And so all of those various the consequences, the long-term consequences don't factor because they only are able to process the immediate. Yeah, they're only able to process the immediate.
Can you give us an idea of how long that particular phase would be? Would it be from 12, 11, or 13 up to 18, 19? How long does that phase normally take? Oh, sorry, I'm not hearing you, Doc. I'm not hearing you. Right. So the question had to do with how the teen
You hearing
boys.
me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Okay. When I was a child, which is a long time ago, there was a feeling that, sorry, remind me of the question that you asked. I think I got a little
The
distracted.
question was, how long does that phase normally last for a teen boy, the phase of
Right.
feeling invincible?
Right. So I was saying that when I was a child, adult was, and you get to adult age when you're 21. That was changed in the somewhere in the 70s or the 80s for several reasons. But I still think that you don't get to that stage of maturity based on research too. That speaks to the development of the frontal lobe, the ability to be able to make decisions. The prefrontal lobe is not fully formed until you're like about 25. So yes, so it takes a while before you're able to make informed, calculated decisions. And so what happens is that the teenager is not able to see unless they're brought to that place to be able to look at the risk and the dangers and so on. And that's why constant dialogue with the teenager to help them to understand what they're doing, where they're going, and so on, and what the dangers are and the consequences of those things. If they don't have that as a guide, then they're going to just run with whatever the feelings are that comes to their head and comes to their mind because of
Wow.
where they are in their own development.
In the biological development of the physical body.
The physical body, right?
All right.
And
Is that different? Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to ask if it's different for girls. Do they develop more quickly?
The girls tend to be a little bit ahead. We tend to be a little bit ahead of the boys because I just remember knowing that I'm a girl too. That we tend to be a little bit ahead, but the boys usually catch up. The boys usually catch up with us. By the time they reach to that high teenage years into 20, 20, 24, 25. The boys usually catch up. But yes, generally speaking, yes, they do go through that phase of what we call egocentrism, where you feel that everybody's looking at you, or you feel that there's this imaginary fable that everybody's looking at you, or where you feel that you're invincible and you can do certain things, and it's not really going to be extreme because I'm young. I have my life ahead of me, and that's all I can see because I'm not able to process things that relate to risk and the various things that can happen irrespective of the age, particularly if you engage in certain things.
Right. Thank you so much for that. I know I interrupted you, Doc, and you were talking about the things that influence teen boys. And we started by saying that the biological body influences them, and you were going to say something else.
Okay, you see, age is not a good thing. I don't remember what I was going to say, but
well, all right. Do you mind if I give you a couple seconds and take a voice note?
That's fine. Go right ahead.
All right. We do have a voice note, so I'm going to ask if we can take a listen.
Good day. My name is Daniel. On the topic what boys think about. Well, firstly, I must say that I'm a focused person. So I think about my future. I think about how and what I can do to develop a better mindset. And what I love about myself is that every day I keep getting knowledge. And also a plus for that is that I'm a Christian. So I understand things, much better and see things clearer. So, yes.
Great. That sounds real
I
great.
think I think that's awesome. And he's 17 years old.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was going on to, even though that obtains as far as the description in relation to the brain, but boys generally, in addition to that, they think about their career. They think about what they're going to own, material things, cars and whatever. They think about being respected. They think about their independence and their success, how they're going to achieve their goals. They look at where they are in terms of their own upbringing and the circumstances of their household and so on, and they usually want better. And they're looking at how they can achieve these goals. They're looking at being tough and being brave and being fearless and sucking up the emotion, the negative emotions, so that nobody will not say that they're not cool, because they want to seem cool, so they're going to be sucking in the emotions. And all of that will be part and parcel of what boys think about. How they play that out now in the long run, and who influences those feelings and those tendencies is another thing, because the influence can be negative or positive in order to achieve some of those goals.
Right. So if we're thinking about Daniel, who just spoke with us, and he says that he is fairly focused, he thinks about his future, he thinks about what to do to develop a better mindset. He has told us that he's a Christian, and he's thinking about other things that we consider to be positive. How can we get or begin to see other teen boys along that same line, or is that something we should even try?
Right. Well, the fact is that the boys are going to be influenced, and girls as well, but the boys are going to be influenced based on their culture, based on what is happening within their community, based on their circumstances. But it is interesting because as I listened to the young man,
Daniel,
let me just say to Daniel, congratulations. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for holding on to those values, for having that kind of focused attitude toward your own personal life. And if you continue that way, man, you turn up, you're going to do good, you're going to do very well. Proud of you. And I've had the privilege of interacting with other young men like him who are from the inner city, or from homes that are not necessarily inner city, but from homes that are not exactly manifesting positive values. And I remember this particular young man, he says, I grew up in just bad words. I grew up in gunmen want to train me to become whatever. I grew up in a situation where it's just my mother is telling me that I need to go and get the gun so that she can get money and do whatever. And he said, that's not what I want. I don't want to impregnate girls. I don't want to do those things, because I believe that God brought me here for a purpose. And I tell you, when a young man was talking to me, you can just imagine, I had to manage my emotions. He said, God brought me here for a purpose, and I want to please him for whatever it is that he has brought me here. So I don't want to impregnate 4, 5, 6 girls. I don't want to do that. I want to impregnate my wife, and I want my children to grow up in that kind of way. So what am I saying? I'm saying that I don't know that it largely depends on where you're brought up. In some instances, yes, but I think a number of situations has to do with who this person is, who this child is, this innate self that you're born with. And yes, influences, positive and negative, are there. You may choose to embrace the positive influence, but there's some children that don't have no positive influence at all, but they have it within themselves, and they have decided that irrespective of what others are doing, I am going to push forward to this particular positive way, because this is what I believe I should.
That's awesome. And I can imagine why and how you felt goosebumps when you were talking to the child, to the young man. But one of the other questions I have is this idea that we are a community or a culture of immediacy, and we all want everything now.
Right.
If we are at a stage as a teenager where we can't even see too well ahead the consequences of our actions, How do teen boys regulate their thinking for the future? This young man tells us he's 17 and he tells us that he is focused on the future. What does he call the future? Is he thinking of 20 years old or is he thinking of 35 years old? What is the future to a teen boy?
I think he may just be thinking of the proprietary things that he has to do in order to become X or Y. I don't know that he is able to. Sure, he may have a view to say, okay, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a whatever. But in terms of being able to envision certain things in fully, he may not be able to do that. But what he clearly has is an understanding of the proprietary things that he must put in place in order to achieve what a Roland has achieved, in order to achieve what a Derval has achieved, for example. How will I get there? There's certain things that I have to put in place. And one of the basic things is my education. And so he may not even have a comprehensive appreciation of what he wants to be yet. But he knows that, look, I have to have CXC. If I don't have CXC, I'm not getting there. So I'm just saying that he may not have it to be able to be spot on and in every single way. But the attitude toward where he wants to go is where I think he's at. He's at the place where he says, look, I want to go somewhere positive. And so these are the things that I am going to, as best as I can, lay the foundation for those things in the future. So maybe 10 years he's thinking of, maybe hopefully by 10 years I will finish university or I will get to university. And maybe all he can see now is that he just need to pass CXC.
Right.
Yeah? But
I get you.
But when he gets to 18, 20, he would be a little bit better to be able to look in a little more, logical way and say, okay, well, these are some of the paths I need to take. And hopefully he has someone who is a good role model who can give him some guidance in that regard.
Right. On that same thing about future and immediacy, how does a teenager who lives in a particular environment where everybody around him is either dying or going to jail by age 20, 25, how does he process and think about the future? What is his way of thinking?
Well, there's a sense in which some persons have accepted that they won't live beyond 25 in certain communities, and and that has become the reality. But you have to purpose in your head and say, look, I don't know how it's all going to pan out, but I'm not going to end up like John and James or even like Mary. I am going to push forward. There is a place because there are positive persons around. And the good thing is that whereas the negatives were being celebrated quite a bit in the past, now we're having a lot of the positives being celebrated. So they can decide that, hey, this, if it is music, if it is whatever other career, they have role models that they can say, I want to emulate that person. So I think even though their decision making process or their ability to make decision may not be as refined as it should be, but the inclination, the attitude toward where I want to go will push them or will poise them to say, I don't have to make that choice because there are options. Yes, in Jamaica it's hard and everybody's saying, oh, you don't need to work because you just need to do this and you get that. But then exposing them to the outcome of some of those persons. They're at penitentiary or they're 6'6", or they're living in fear as opposed to taking your time and graduating. We're in the microwave and the instant phone and the fast food and all of those things are just press a button and it happens. But I think that there has to be someone, we have to get to the place where we help persons to see, yes, there are some things that can be instant, but in terms of really making it in life, and you listen to stories of several persons who have made it, and you hear of the humble beginning of how they started, and you realize that this is not something that is a press button. You have to work for it, and sometimes you have to work very, very hard.
Sometimes we do have to work hard like that. And we are talking about influences. So
Yes.
for a teen boy, how does he look outwardly for influences in the form of like mentors or um, father figures or individuals who he can look up to? How does his mind work in that regard, in the regard of looking to say who he can emulate? How does a
Well,
teen brain work?
right. So he is going to be looking at anybody that impacts him. So if he looks and he sees someone who is particular in a particular area or field or career that he likes, he may gravitate toward a person, whether the person is local or foreign. He may also just see someone who has a family. I remember this young man, he said that he didn't understand what it meant by family until one man from church invited him home to his home. When he went home, he saw mother, father, he saw children and the dog, and he saw persons were called and told to come to dinner, and he sat and they prayed. And he came away and he says, I want that. I want that. I don't know what that is. I was at home. It's almost as if they did not throw down, or if I want to cook or whatever. He says, I want that, and I am going to purpose. So exposing our church. So the church can play a role. The community systems that are there can play a role in helping to point the boys toward positive role models. So if whatever the interest is that you have, that you can find someone, even if it's not the exact interest, but you can find someone whom the child could look on, whether local or abroad, and say, hey, look at this person, look at what they have done. And this is how they achieve it, and you can achieve it. But we as adults, we have to help them, because then many of them don't have the ability or don't have the strength to get there on their own. So we have to, as adults, we have to be there for them, to help them. So the teachers, the guidance counselors, we have to be there for them, depositing that they can. And a lot of times they feel that they can't because they're told that they can't. And so we have to change the message that we're giving to our boys, not to let them feel that they're worse and now come out to not know just like a pooper, those kinds of things. No, we need to change those kinds of that kind of language and begin to instill hope in them. Otherwise, where is Jamaica going?
Where would we go? You know, Dr. Pinkney, what I'm hearing you saying is that the young men develop their mentors or the pictures in their minds of what they would like to be like, who they would like to be like, based on their own desires, what it is that they want. That's what I'm hearing you say. Absolutely. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And even if they appear not to have any immediate role model, positive role model, they would have gotten some sense of those positive from somewhere to make them feel that this is what I want. This is what I want.
Right. And what I'm trying to get in my own mind, remember I used to be a teen boy, I'm trying to get it in my own mind, if the role models that I looked up to, if the men that I found worth following were men who were able to do what I wanted to do, who were able to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. And if that is so, what are the pictures that we put in front of our teen boys?
Absolutely.
Those pictures and those images should be images that they are really going to benefit from following.
Yes.
We have to take our first break, Doc, and I just want to remind our listeners that we want to hear from them. So if you're a teenage boy, we want to hear what you're thinking, and if you were ever a teenage boy, we want to hear what you're thinking. You can send us your responses by WhatsApp text and voice notes, and you send it to 997-3125. And you can watch us and comment live on Love 101, Facebook, and YouTube. Or you can call the studio lines 968-8327 or 968-8328. And just so you know, the numbers for the Family Life Ministries head office in Kingston are 920-1034 or 926-8101. Don't go anywhere just yet. We're going to have another voice note. and come back with us as we continue our discussion.
Hey, me count, you count. Census say all of we count. Hey, you count, me count. Census say all of we count. Hey, information needed to develop the community. Them scouts them out and I get the reports. So don't bother hide when you see them.
Census 2022.
The Jamaican census will be conducted between September and December 2022.
You go, me go.
The 10,000 Men in Families Movement, in association with all churches in St. Catherine, presents the historic Night of Hope for Spanish Town under the theme End Violence, Build Peace. Sunday, 6th November, 4:30 p.m. at the Town Center, Spanish Town, with marching bands, uniform groups, and scouts groups across St. Catherine, moving from the police station to the Town Center. Music by O'Shane Nays and Perpetual Praise. Word by Pastor Paul Mason. Come in your thousands as we stand against murder, praying as we embrace.
Grace, celebrating 100 years of taste that moves you.
The time by Grace Foods is...
Welcome back, welcome back. And we are talking about when boys think, what boys think, teen boys. And it's around about 5:58, 5:59, almost 6 o'clock. And we are glad that you have stuck with us, that you're here with us for this conversation. I want to say thank you to our guest, Dr. Pinkney, and for her comments, for her wisdom and insight in this topic. We are so glad that we have her here. And I'm told that it's actually 2 minutes past 6, so I need to adjust my clock. I don't want to tell you the wrong time and have you chasing around. So I'm so glad you're with us. Hello again, Doc. We're talking about how teen boys think. And this is such an interesting topic for me because I am actually learning, even though I was a teen boy once, I am learning. And we were talking about the influences. What are some things that will feed into how teen boys think? We were talking about their biology, how the body is working and the development that the body is going through. We were talking about external influences like maybe even media or the imagery and messaging, music maybe, that they are bombarded with from day to day, and their desires, what it is that they want, who they see as role models to achieving what they want. And one of the things I want to ask you now, having said all of that, do all teen boys think the same way?
No. Not at all. They would be going through the biological changes, all things being equal, with them being quote unquote normal. But they're influenced by how what is happening within their surrounding, what is happening within themselves. What is the friends that they keep and the influence that brings in their to them, and how they respond to those influences or the pressures that come for them to feel that they belong, for them to feel that they're part of this team. What I've found out, what research says, is that teens in general, but boys who do not have that level of support at home, tend to veer and to grab at anything that strikes them. And of course, unfortunately, sometimes they don't grab at the right influence. But to answer your question directly, yes, they would respond to then the biological influences in basically the same way. But in terms of how they manage those biological influences how they manage the other social influences, I think would largely depend on their own sense of self, the role models that they're following. There's the support that they have, and even though some teenagers behave as if they don't want the parents around and they're tired of this, but if you as a parent withdraw, they are lost. If you as a parent withdraw long enough, they are lost. You hear some children talk about how they had to fend for themselves because there is no parent there. And when they speak of it, there's a lot of negative emotions that come from it because they went through a lot without the kind of guidance that they believe that they wanted. You see, God did not make any mistake. You know, he made two persons, male and female, to come together to create a child. And that is supposed to carry them all the way through to, I think, to death, because you're always a parent, yeah? But certainly until they get to the adult stage where they can make their own and begin to replicate what you have guided them into. And so they need that. And if that is absent, it's going to influence them in one form or the other. And so, yes, they will think generally because of the influence, the biological influence, the hormones, but in terms of how they manage those effects and the other things that are there, it can be very, very different.
Right. I get you. And I was doing some reading about this, and one of the things that struck me is that there are some needs that teen boys have. And one of them in particular is this need for acceptance and respect.
Absolutely.
How does that factor into their thinking, this business of respect or acceptance?
Well, a big part of how our boys are socialized is to feel that the man is the leader. And so there's a sense in which the child would grow up, the boy would grow up thinking that I am the head of the household. If you go to church, you get it. And you hear, oh, you mustn't treat a girl that way. So the whole business of being a protector, being the provider, because you see that demonstrated, even if it's not demonstrated at home, but it's demonstrated in society, in movies and so on. So you see that. And so the notion of the man being the protector. So even though he may not fully understand everything, but he still has that saying, you know. And so if you're looking forward to be protector, if you're looking forward to be, to have this thing about yourself, to feel good about yourself, then if somebody diss me, I'm not going to take it well, because I'm supposed to be respected, because that is how I am told. So you find that boys would get upset that you diss me, and you ask them what they did, and sometimes it appears negligible, but it's a big thing for them, because you diss me before everybody else. Everybody hear what you say. You call me, and there's a thing when I was growing up. You talk about, they tell me about my mother. Oh man, if a boy would get irritated if you said that to him, whatever you may say, whether it is something disrespectful or you just said like her, they would really react in a way which is really major. So the whole business of being respected, or business of feeling empowered, because it's all about getting into the ego place, the place of I am in charge, I am the leader, I am here, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just to the extent that it is taken and it is not managed. And so those are some of the things, and that's why we need the role models, because whilst you should insist on being respected, your behavior should follow through. That respect should be automatic.
Right. One of the other ones that I am thinking of is not necessarily something that they want or feel good to receive, but it is this idea of discipline. Mm-hmm. How does discipline factor into the thinking of a teen boy?
Well, the fact is, that if he has a thing where he thinks that he can take risk, and he's not thinking of consequences, he's not going to go to that, because unless you really get his attention to help to understand. One of the things I find interesting is when you say to a child, Tell me why you did what you did. And my little one said, my head just tell me that. You know?
What can you say to that? What can you say to that?
And I said to them, but you're going to follow everything your head said? So you're helping them to understand that, hey, you may feel that that looks exciting, but you have to stop and think about it. What is the consequence for doing this? Not just consequence for getting into trouble, but for hurting yourself and hurting other people. And so I think that a lot of times those kinds of things are not processed, but you have to help them to get to that place, and you empower them too by speaking positive things, affirm them, because men, their boys need the affirmation. They need their ego massage because they're going to become men. And I have no apology to say men have fragile egos, and we women sometimes forget that. And in the same, in the opposite way that we women bally and very, very sensitive. I mean, don't mean that. But the fact is that we cry and we show our emotions readily. Men have ego, and sometimes it explodes into pride, which is not good. But generally speaking, a man don't want to feel that he's less than. And there's a way to say to a boy, you really can't do this, But this is what I think you should focus on. Rather than saying, go sit down, or you say you what, and speaking a derogatory way to them to really bruise their ego. So helping to affirm them, being realistic and being honest, but helping to affirm them is very important, because the ego fragile. And
well,
so
they
become defensive. They become defensive once you're doing things to them that makes them feel less than, or makes them feel as if you don't regard them and you don't respect them.
Right. I get that. And as I'm waiting on some of our listeners and viewers to send in their comments about what they used to think of when they were teen boys, I want to put something to you. When I was a teen boy, and I'm being very honest now, I would imagine that maybe 97.6% of the time I was thinking about girls. That was basically all that was on my mind. Is that normal for a teen boy? And is that basically what we are to expect when we're talking to a teen boy?
You see, the testosterone, the hormonal upsurge, I call it, will cause the boys to begin to have all of those little crushes and those little feelings, and desiring girls and what, and especially sometimes when you get into a setting where you have other boys or bigger boys who do what we call the report telling, because men do what we call report telling and women do rapport. The women want everybody to be involved and to get the emotions going. No, the man is on stage and he's giving a report as to what I did. And a lot of times when they say they do with girls and so on, trust me, half of the time I don't true that. But what it does is that it causes others who are part of the audience to be like, wow, I want to do that too. And so there's a sense in which that they feel that they need the girls become a focus. And it's natural. It's a natural thing. So if you begin to like girls or have an erection when you see a girl or a girl's son come beside you, it's not a bad thing. It's just that you need to be guided as to how to rechannel and how to. So you don't grab her because you feel that way. You need to know that it's not appropriate to do that. So when the erection comes, I've seen young men, they're sitting in an erection and they're like, Miss, can I go to the back? And they're like, go right ahead, my darling. Because it happens. And until you get to a point where you're able to manage the physiology of it, yeah, it is sometimes a little bit challenging. But you do think, I've never been a boy, I've never been a man. But based on what my research, I have a son, yes. And I know that they do think about girls because it's part of the development in the same way that the girls do think about boys as well. So it's not abnormal for that to happen. It's what you do with that feeling.
Okay, absolutely. So I know we are getting on to almost to another break now. But first of all, what is it that boys don't think about? We're talking about what they're thinking about. What is it that they don't think about? And as I said, we're getting on to the break. So I'm going to ask you to respond to that when we come back.
Right.
But right now, I want to encourage all our listeners, all our viewers, please send us your comments, send us your voice notes, and we are happy to hear what you are willing to share with us. Don't go away. We are going to be right back.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and spiritual guidance are what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything. Tune in, listen, call in, text or voice message. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
National build up the nation. Nice baked goods for everybody. Nothing no sweet me like bun and cheese. National make you bill with the family. We love cheese. If old and mommy prefer crackers and tea. And we support all one chicken man with the hard bread, you know, giant brand. Serving the people of Jamaica with wholesome food to help you stay strong. Yeah. Grab your national bag, original, truly Jamaican. Something for all occasion. Good for your breakfast, lunch or snack. Grab your national bag, original, truly Jamaican. Best quality, 70 years strong. National build up the nation. National Baking Company, baked with pride since 52.
Welcome back, and this time I think I have the right time. It's now 6:17 p.m. and I'm so glad that you're tuned to Love 101. This is Family Time, and it's brought to you by Family Life Ministries. FLM provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. So I'm going to invite you to listen out for our numbers in Kingston and Portmore at the end of this program. Remember that we are on Facebook and YouTube Live, so you can tune into the program via the Love 101 Facebook page and the Love 101 YouTube channel. The topic today is When Boys Think, and Dr. Joan Pinkney is our expert guest. And I'm so glad she is here with us, because I would not be telling you half of what she has shared. It's so good to be talking with her. Welcome back, Doc. And I am going to kind of switch focus a little bit. You're welcome. Thank you. And I want to say a slightly different direction is where I would like us to head now. And it's this. What should the teen boy be thinking about?
Okay. Well, I thought you said before you left what he should not be thinking about, or am I mistaken?
No, you're actually right. I forgot that. You see, when you get to my age and you hear dropping out, memories drop out with it.
Leave that to me. All right. So what
we did, yeah.
Right. What he does not think about is, and we've kind of touched on some of those earlier, the possible result of a risk, the fact that you can die, the fact that you're not invincible. What he's not thinking about is the consequences of negative behavior, the ultimate consequences. He may figure that, this may happen, or when I do this, what I do. I think I'm thinking of a young man who he wasn't thinking at the fact that he could actually commit. Well, it was an accident. So he had the rope around his neck. A stool was under his feet. He tied it up in the, and this is a real thing that happened. He tied it up inside the house, and he called his father to say that he was going to hang himself. It was a joke. and he's there calling his father, and in the effort of calling his father, the stool slipped. The stool slipped. So he wasn't thinking, all he was thinking of is doing a joke. And his father heard him, but by the time his father came, a little was left, and by the time they rushed in the hospital, he died. And he was one of those, yes, he was one of those chill boys who was a lovely young man, but he was always running these jokes, these extreme jokes. He actually got a rope, put it in the thing, and said, "Daddy, come here." And was calling with a stool. And the stool, I don't know whether the stool broke or whatever happened, but the stool cracked or whatever, but he hanged himself. And so thinking ultimately of those kinds of risky behavior. So if I'm driving, yes, it feels nice that I'm driving. But what if the tire goes? What, those kinds of things that as adults, and that's why, some of us who are in our 30s and 40s still have some of those adolescent behavior. But generally speaking, the young man, the teenager, is not able to fully embrace that. Somebody was saying jumping off a roof and throwing empty bottles in the air and not realizing that when they come down, so the consequences of behavior that are risky, he doesn't think through that. And a lot of it has to do with where he's at in his development. I talked about the brain and the development, the prefrontal lobe, the development, and being able to process things and see things in a logical way, in that kind of way. Sometimes they don't consider their blessings because they take what they have, their parents, their support, and all of that they have as, no big deal. And whilst, you really should be, the parents are obligated to look after you because they brought it to this world. But the fact is that there are some children who don't have parents looking after them, who have to go into state care. And so you have this. You have persons, taking you to school or giving you lunch money, or you have a father who is there for you. You have support. Okay, so you don't have a father figure, but you have uncles and persons who are there. And sometimes the boys don't think through that and see that as something that they should be thankful for. So sometimes they neglect to recognize their blessings.
That's
they're not thinking about. Yeah.
Right. That's amazing stuff. And when you combine the fact that they are not thinking about consequences and they don't think about blessings, it's the grace of God why worse things don't happen with our teen boys.
Absolutely.
It is the grace of God there. So having said that, what they don't think about, what should they be thinking about now?
Well, they really should be thinking to first of all begin to recognize that they have a family. Be happy for that. Be thankful for that. They should begin to think of their career goals, and they should be helped. They should be guided as to what career choices they should make. And let me caution parents who, I wanted to be a glorified doctor and it did not happen. So you, my daughter, you, my son, is going to be the glorified doctor for me. And that is so wrong, because sometimes a poor child cannot even manage the DOC, much more to spell the rest of the word. And so you have to appreciate the child's interests, the child's ability to be able to do certain things, and help them to guide them into becoming what they can become their purpose. So he really should be focused on his career goals, how he's going to get there. Yeah, how he's going to get there. His role as a potential leader, his role as a protector. He should be thinking about his purpose and how to fulfill it. How he presents himself. Not that he can determine what people think of him, but certainly if you present yourself a particular way, persons are going to end up thinking of you in a particular way. And when you're struggling with the wet dreams and the first crush and those sexual encounters that you may have that were unsuccessful, because sometimes those things happen, and those will be some of the secrets. But you do have young men who enter into sexual relationships, sexual activities, and they have premature ejaculation and they feel embarrassed because sometimes the girl laugh at them and say, you know, what happened and so on, but they don't have a clue how to manage all of that. And so they will keep those a secret. And so those have to be dealt with in a particular way, to have someone to talk through with those things. So those are some of the things that I think he should be thinking about with someone guiding him along the way.
One of the things that I'm hearing as we go back over the discussion that we've had is that teen boys need someone that they can trust.
Yes, absolutely. Another thing that I think we omitted to mention is the whole business of the quest for independence.
Right.
They want to feel that they can, and that is something that the child, whether boy or girl, should be empowered into from early. So allow them to put on the shirt. Even if you put on the wrong side, it's fine. Yeah, it's okay.
Let them do stuff. Let them do things.
Then you say to them, look at my shirt. My shirt don't have this thing, and they probably think, or they put on the shoes thing. But if you're always running behind them to do things for them, they never really understand the full concept of being independent. But independence has to have a balance, because you need to realize that teamwork and the fact that I am not alone in this world. But we have to work together. So independence is very important to teenagers.
Absolutely. And one final thing from you, Doc. Any thoughts you want to share on teen boys, when they're thinking, how they're thinking, why they're thinking? Anything from you on that?
Well, sometimes they appear to be going down the wrong path. And I think what we tend to do is to grab them and fling them and tell them that whatever else, and, you know, do all kinds of abusive, you know, some of our parents were alive today, you know, they'll be charged for abuse. But no, it's true, because
I know.
And the various things that they used to use, the broomstick and the shoes heel, no, those
an
things.
extension cord.
Yes. But don't meet your child with aggression. Don't try to match the aggression, because you know, they may remember now they have no thinking about risk, you know, so they're gonna do. So meet them, sit down and say, what's going on, son? Let's talk about what, and talk about some things that you admire about your child. A mother said, I admire about him. I said, you bring him into this world. There must be something in eyelash, something that you admire about him. Speak about it and let the child feel that you think positively about him too. Allow him to talk and listen to what he has to say, because they have something to say. Listen to him, and then you are firm, but you are respectful with how you guide him along with what it is, the path that you want him to take.
Thank you so much, Doc. I appreciate you sharing with us and being here. And I'm really glad that you took the time to share your expertise and your insight with us on this topic.
Thanks for having me.
To our listeners, thank you for being here. And if you have questions of a personal nature, or you're concerned about a friend or a family member, call us at Family Life Ministries. For our center in Portmore at 117 Cecile Avenue, call 939-7917. For more information on our services, or for our counselors in Kingston and other parts of the island, contact our head office at 920-1034 or 926-8101. Note that appointments can only be made by direct contact with the offices. Otherwise, to keep up to date with what's happening with FLM and our programs, you can find us on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries, FLMJA. Before we leave you tonight, here is this evening's Bible verse. It's taken from Proverbs chapter 14, verse 29, and it says, "Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly." Join us again next week at 5:30 p.m. on Love 101 FM, Facebook, and YouTube Live via the Love 101 Facebook page and Love 101 YouTube channel for another informative program. Thanks again to Dr. Joan Pinkney. Thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale, Open Door Communications, our studio facilitator, Timoy Butler, and of course, you, our guests. We're so happy you joined us. I'm Roland, saying stay blessed and have a good evening.